You get bumped. So, but if you don't know, you need to find out. Because, again, one rogue employee at that third-party person can happen. Now, let me give you an example of, I hate to take you to the floor here, Kent. He had a situation in Macomb when he worked at Macomb. He was having trouble at a pumping station for the lake water. And they had a phone out there, and it was just randomly ringing. Okay, come to find out, this phone was connected to City Hall over the fiber optics. Now, here's the problem with what was happening, okay? They had an unsecured switch out there, okay? It was a third-party network, unencrypted. And whenever we got there, I wasn't even physically there. I had sent somebody out to actually look at it, and they're like, wait a minute here, something strange going on. So I said, plug into the switch. Let's see what we can do. I got into the switch, and I was seeing City Hall. I was seeing water plant. I was seeing the phone system. I was seeing all this at the same time. That's a problem, because if you can see everything at the same time, what happens to somebody down in City Hall? If they make a mistake down there, you get malware. They affect the water plant. They affect the community then. That's the reason why we do assessments on the systems. That's why it's super important, because if the line was encrypted, okay, which by the way, it's still not yet. I'm working with Brian on that. If the line was encrypted for the water plant, and it was done correctly, it doesn't matter that somebody down in City Hall had got malware, because the system can't get through, because you're firewalled and you're encrypted and everything. That's one of the reasons why. Education. That's one of the reasons you're here. It's because you're going to get education on this stuff. Well, this is just overview stuff. So this is the kind of things that we try to educate you guys, and this is why they brought, bring people in to be able to educate on this stuff. Super important that we get it done. Managing your cybersecurity. These are the top listings of the fields where people are trying to hack, because they know they have a very high incident of impact. If they get that system screwed up and messing around with, then they can impact a huge amount of people. Water and wastewater is on that list. We've heard of healthcare. It's almost common now that you're hearing about a hospital getting ransomware. Now, it's your chemicals, your dams, emergency services, your government facilities have all been hit by ransomware. You guys are on the list, because over the last decade, it's ramped up from a couple here and there to now it's a constant thing. I have one customer that they have somebody that keeps pinging their firewall from Korea, North Korea, not South Korea. It keeps being pinged by them. And they're looking for holes. I block them, they change their IP. I block them, they change their IP. But it happens over and over and over. So, how do we do this? Well, there's tools. You can do a cybersecurity risk and boosting resilience assessments, okay? Here's one from the Security Infrastructure Security Agency, okay? We can, what they do, or what they have, you provide a framework for improving critical infrastructures and cybersecurity. Here, you voluntarily risk assessment approach for managing your system. You address broad security needs of those critical areas, but it's not one size fits all. Your system is going to be different from your system, and your system is going to be different from yours. So you tailor it for what you're doing, but you never cap yourself so that you can't expand and manage it and move as you need to. Resilience, the power or ability of a material to return to its original form. So if you get attacked, how easy it would be for you guys to get back into shape and keep running. That, you don't know, do you? Do you guys know how hard it would be? If you guys got slammed, everything taken out, how hard would it be to put back together? Well, I know. I'm talking about you. If you guys, you know? You know? I know. Ability for a system or an organization to respond or recover readily from a crisis. That's part of your assessment that you need, okay? We need to be able to figure out what that is. Managing your cybersecurity, describing the desired outcomes. So, you get hit by malware. What's your desired outcome? Just boom, get it done. And get it out of the way. You know, you can easily just recover from the system, from backups, doing things like that. Okay? NIST security, they're another one that you can use. They have very similar things. There's a link, if you go down their website, there's a link for water and wastewater. Okay? It allows you to be able to then get some assessments. Okay? These guys do an excellent job. Your AWWA water group, they have guidelines too. There's multiple places to be able to get this information that you want to be able to assess. Okay? Online tools, they have the ability for you to do priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, priority 4 stuff. That way you can say, well, this is not as important as this is. This is more important over here. Then you'll be able to go through and you can do your assessments. Here's a kind of a little bit of an overview of what they kind of do, you know. Updated, revised, and maintained. They've done this for quite a long time, since 2013. That's how long they've been aware of this problem. CISA, they're another one that you can use. Here's the AWA online thing. It's updated to 2019 if you guys want to know. October 2020. They have an integration of output for the CSET setup. Water, ISEC, or ISA, they have the fundamentals for water and wastewater also. Okay? There's security as a process, not a task. Okay? Security is not absolute. Again, you don't have to turn around and build $1 million security system when your plant could be rebuilt entirely for $1 million. Okay? It's not feasible. Okay? This is where you say, I want to manage my and increase resilience for critical infrastructure. It's neither feasible nor is it practical to 100% mitigate risks. It's an unfortunate thing. You have to say, at what point is the system secure enough? Okay? But that's about it. How many questions you got? By the way, there's some products on the tables here that you guys can take a look at. These are examples of industrial hardware that can go out in your field and be able to help you secure that kind of hardware. That way you realize that, you know, like at a well, you don't need a rack mount device to be able to protect it, okay? These devices that you have in front of you, these are all made to be able to do that kind of stuff. They're designed to be able to snack right in and keep on going. So. Oh, yeah. How many have lift stations with a cellular connection? Are you concerned about the security of them? Huh? What kind of system do you use? Okay. How do you know if they're encrypted? No clue? Well, fortunately they are, but something that you always have to do whenever you put in something, even on a cellular system, you have to keep track of the security of those systems. So one of the things you want to do is to make sure that you keep track of OmniSite's security, okay? Or mission, if you have a mission system, okay? Those are security systems that you got to keep track of, because if they go down, you have no monitoring, okay? And if you have no monitoring and something goes wrong, becomes a problem. We had one community that had a lift station run for 1 month, overflowing into a creek. Didn't even know it. Their monitoring system went down. So, but you know, that's the things that can happen. So, anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. Well, appreciate you guys' time. And if you do have any questions in the future, you got my business card. I don't charge to answer a phone call. Not a problem.
Talk slow, go.
I never talk slow, you know that.
I'm reminding you.
I'll just make stuff up. Fill in time. You got my newer presentation. Is that the one you gave me or the older one?
I gave him
Okay. Okay, good. I don't need that
you'll
then.
be able to look at it on the laptop,
Okay.
depending on where you're standing.
Yep. Okay. Oh. Yep. All right. Good morning. That's me, energy efficiency technician. I was in the water industry for 38 years for the city of Taylorville. That's where I worked. I was a superintendent there for the last 17. So I'm on a hard learning curve on the wastewater side, just so you know, just to be honest about it. So the program itself from National Rural Water began in 2014. It's expanded. They actually added 5 more states this year. So I do 30 assessments a year, 5 of them being follow-ups going back to somewhere I'd been before. So the 2 big keys to it are it doesn't cost anything. It's part of the membership fee of being a member of the Illinois Rural Water. And there's strictly recommendations. You don't have to comply with anything. You can do everything. You can do part of it. It's strictly up to the facility. So, and if you got questions, more details, we can get into it as, as we're doing the assessment. So. Energy efficiencies, pretty straightforward, trying to save money where we can on utility costs, which of course are going up. Is everybody here on Ameren? So everybody saw their bill. How many people see the bills for their facility? Anybody here actually see them? Okay. So you saw the spike. Of course, everybody at home saw their spike. Just so you know, that was on the supply side. That wasn't really Ameren. They were passing along. Ameren just went to the ICC and applied for an $83 million rate increase to go in effect January. So ICC will rule on that. Ameren will probably get a portion of that. So what I've been hearing is you can expect a similar increase in January to get in effect. So on your February bills, you're going to see another bump. There's no long-term scenario that goes down, quite frankly. One of the things we're hearing is with the grid and, MISO, which is the area that covers the Midwest, some issues with that, as a lot of the coal plants come offline, a lot of them were here, so getting generation from point A to point B wasn't as big an issue as it is now. So don't expect any of those things to turn around. You can expect the rates to continue to increase. Why do we do an assessment? It's pretty straightforward. We're going to try to figure out how to save money for utility. Costs of everything going up, chemicals, electricity, everything we do. We keep seeing huge increases. So what we'll do is we'll walk through your facility, have somebody come through with me, show me, here's how we do this, and here's what the, controls are, here's what the pumping are. I take a lot of photos. My memory's not as good as it used to be. We got a little flourish. We can do some thermal imaging, try to find some issues with that on occasion. We will. I'll try to get all your electrical information. That's 480 volt and 50 horse motor over here, and this stuff's all 240, that kind of stuff. I try to look up incentives. Ameren does have some incentive programs. They have a lot of rules, with them, but they do have some pretty effective programs if you're willing to go down that road. And then, of course, we'll provide recommendations. So I need at least one copy of your utility bill. We like to do it for a year. One of the places I was doing had given me like a bill from, it was like February of last year, and I did it just the other day, and I said, oh, that's not going to work because your rates now are substantially different than they were then. So, and then, of course, I need a little bit of your time to walk around with me so we can kind of, escort me around, show me what's going on, let me get some data and stuff. And then, of course, your knowledge of your conditions, because I'm not going to know anything about your plant. So, and then you kind of walk me through your process. This VFD runs this motor, and we run it 12 hours a day, and here's why, and that kind of thing. So, some of the big stuff we look at is premium efficiency motors. If you're replacing the motor, go premium efficiency. What the rates they are now, it's going to pay for itself in a couple of years, the difference anyway. Variable frequency drives, they're not always the answer, but they're often are a good installation. Off-peak hours, I think you're going to see that come to effect. We don't have a lot of that around here. You hear that a lot out west where they have a lot more issues. And I think as time goes on, you might see that go into effect around here. So it's just something we'll talk about. Demand charges, you can be, a lot of utilities go off a year. They'll look at your peak demand, and that's what your rate's established off of. I looked at one, they were at 147, the peak's 150, so they were right at it. So they needed to be really careful that they weren't like trying to start 250 horse motors at the same time over across the line start, that kind of thing. They just set themselves over it, and then it would have been a year before the rate would have came back down. So we'll look at the treatment process for efficiency. Basically, once in a while, I still run into we do it this way because that's the way we always did it. And that's usually not a very efficient method. So, and we'll look at everything from climate control, HVAC, lighting, building envelope, a lot of different factors. So, EPA's got some estimates on, how much power is generated just for it. Aeration and pumping and wastewater aeration is a real big one there for a lot of the smaller ones. Aeration and pumping both. Drinking water, by all means, pumps are the big thing on that. But bottom line, you're talking about a third of your operational costs just for energy. So, when you're looking at pumping load, we're looking at motors, whether it's a 15 horse, 50 horse, 100 horse, no matter what. We're going to look at motors, look at the efficiency on them. I've seen some that, I think I've seen one the other day, I think it was older than I am. It was really impressive. It was still there and it was still running. It was pretty neat. Anyway, so the average efficiency of an electric motor is 85. They are changing, and depending on the size of the motor, the premium efficiency is different. They can get as high as 98, but that's in bigger motors. You're not going to see that in a 7.5 and a 15 horse motor. As you can see, there's kind of what it is. So if you're smaller motors, best you're going to get is like 91.7. But as you get up to 100 horse, you'll hit a 95. And when you get bigger, you hit even some higher efficiency. So, but with electrical rates going up, it makes a significant difference. So this is just showing the return on cost. So it's 2.3 years. That's just the difference. So that's what it'd pay for itself. If you'd installed a standard efficiency as opposed to premium efficiency, in 2.3 years, it would have paid for the difference in the cost in that motor. This is not my slide. I stole it from somebody. So this kind of shows you where the rates going from 8 cents over to 11 cents. If you look at it like a 10 horse, you went from 68 to 9,300. And this is 24/7, 365. So this motor's running all year long. But you just run up, really quick on one motor. That's the increase you saw. So a little bit here, a little bit there. This is all going to add up really fast when you start putting motors after motors. So We do use a FLIR once in a while on some stuff. This is one of the things that I was kind of surprised, that once again, not my slide, so I steal everything off the internet. So, but this was just belt slippage. I wish they would have shot their range a little better, because that's obviously above 52. So basically it was pretty cold where it was at, and that belt was slipping. So they were just losing energy over the belt slip, which doesn't sound like a lot, not a big deal. But one of the things that they're pushing now pretty hard is timing belts. The cog belts, like a timing belt on a car. They slip a lot less. I never really liked the narrow V belts, but apparently they're a little more efficient. I always went with the standard. But the timing belts are, and I looked this up a couple places, and they all pretty much said the same thing. If you're putting a belt drive on a blower or something like that, or a compressor or something, go with some timing belts, and you'll save a couple of % efficiency. And if you got something that's running 12 hours a day, you're going to make a little bit of money on it. So once again, what we're looking at is trying to get everything we can from what we're spending. We don't want waste electricity. I don't want 2 inches ahead of my beer when I go get a draft, and I don't want to, be wasting a bunch of money on electricity when I don't have to. So, obvious VFD opportunities. Throttle valves on a pump here. They got this valve throttle pretty much all the way shut. I've seen several instances of this. I got one I'm working on now they have two, it's a water plant, 2,000 gallon a minute high service pumps. They only run one at a time, and they have them throttled to 550 gallon each. So they're just spinning and not doing much of anything. So, I got to look at the pump curve, because it's on a VFD. I'm not sure if they can even turn it down enough if the shutoff head won't, or if it won't fall off the curve. So, and I see a lot of aerators either throttled or on positive displacement. They'll return some air. Once again, you're just wasting it. If you could put a VFD on that, slow it down, you're going to get the same thing and save substantial money. I'll show you how much here in a little bit. Wastewater aeration's a big part. And of course, every facility is a little bit different. If you got to pump your water 4 times through your facility, if it's some of the small aeration plants we go to, they pump it once, it gets their system, they pump it up, and it goes through. So for them, aeration's obviously huge. So everything's a little bit different. You guys know your facility. I won't. You'll tell me about it. You'll still know it 10 times more than I ever will. So VFDs, generally recommended for 10 horsepower. They're a lot more, you can get a VFDs really small now. Actually, you see a lot of them on HVAC now, to where instead of the blower stopping, it'll just kind of ramp down, slow down, and then as the compressor kicks on, it'll pick back up just to keep the air from getting hot and cold spots. So they don't call them variable frequency drives, they call them variable speed drives, but it's the same thing. So, and like I said, we got a little spreadsheet we kind of fell off of this, because it's depending on how many times you start a day, how many hours obviously you run a day, if you've got a valve throttled, how far you've got that valve throttled. So everything kind of factors into it. So the big thing with them is it's the Affinity law or Cube law is how they look at how they energy savings. But if you can cut it back by 25%, you're going to save half your energy on that. So if you've got a valve like that one we showed where that valve was throttled wrong, they're going to cut their energy costs in half on that pump. If you've got a 50 horse motor and it's running 12 hours a day, 24 hours a day, and you got that valve throttle, you can cut half the cost on that, which is going to be really substantial. So you can save up to 90%. You're never really going to see that. If you're saving up to 90%, you probably got something that just needs to be resized. So anyway, and of course VFDs are nice. Get rid of that whole start and stop, hammering, and so. Financial incentives are, of course, what we're talking about really on doing them. The demand charges, because when you do that, the old cross the line start stuff, you get, the lights dim and everything, and kind of take its time and come back up. That's where you hit your demand charges, depending on your utilities and where you're at on that little blocks, because they have blocks they put you in. Like I said, you could throw yourself up over that for a year, increase that charge for a year when you may not need to. You could simply get around that by putting in a VFD or a soft start. In that case, depending on the condition, it may be better off for a soft start. Offset oversizing. I tell you, one of the things I have seen oversizing is on blowers. I've seen a lot of places where blowers are either redirecting air or they have them throttled, one of the two. So Peak versus non-peak, like I said, you don't really see that much. My prediction, it will probably go into at some point in the future. I'm not sure how quick that'll come in, but that's, you can do it. I know that we had one utility, they were on a interruptible rate. Their utility could give them, I think it's 45-minute notice, and then they would be able to turn their power off, so they'd have to go to generate, or, they'd have to switch to generation, and they'd have to be off for whatever that utility determined there was, whether it was from 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock, they'd have to stay off for that entire time. If they did, they got a greatly reduced rate, energy rate, but they had to be off if they come on that line 1 minute early on that. They not only negated that rate, they took their entire normal rate and increased it to a higher one. So it's something you can do, but you got to have good generations and you got to be careful with it, because they would always, he said they'd go like 5 minutes past just to make sure they didn't bust into that. Treatment efficiency. Mainly I really see this on the water side a lot with backwash. We backwash when we backwash because that's the way the guy that told me and the guy before him told him. So we'll see some of that. But you do see that sometimes on aeration too. We got the aerator set here because that's where it's set. Not really why or how, it's just that's where the blowers are set at and that's where we leave them at. Climate control, HVAC, this is stuff that, when you start getting into the buildings where you've got climate controlled, SEER units on the stuff and AFUEs on the furnaces and programmable thermostats, a lot of that stuff you can get. Programmable thermostats, Ameren just had a program from them. I think that was it was like $70 thermostat, and Ameren was rebating like 40 of it, and then they had another rebate for like another 30 of it. If you were an Ameren customer, you could basically get a programmable thermostat for $0 or $20 or whatever. So that's stuff that Ameren's kind of pushing on there. The two big things you see on the HVAC is, still go in and you got filters that look like that. That unit's just starving for air, can't do what it's trying to do. Or you'll see that, you'll go outside and the condenser's just plugged up. That thing's running 24 hours a day. Well, yeah, because it can't get any, can't exchange the heat out of it. So that's a real simple thing. I know it's not big in the whole scheme of things. It's not saving energy on a 100-horse motor, but if you've got 4 AC units set like this, the plant I was at, we had 6 of them. And we built it new, and we were about 18 months down the road, and all of a sudden we're like, anybody ever clean them out? Actually, the HVAC guy came, and how often do you clean them? And I said, oh, yeah, well, yeah, sure we are. Hell no, we hadn't did it for 18 months. We went in, sure enough, one of them looked like that. So it's something that it's easy to forget, but it's something that if you want to save a little money here, this is the way to do it. Because we all know when we save money, it goes right into our salaries. So, you got some small installations, little buildings. We had some of these too. You go out and you got a place that's a little cold when it gets bad there in January, so you throw a little milk house heater in there, and they do the job. But it's over $100 a month at the rates we're looking at now. If that little thing's setting up to run all day, and there's some stuff you can do. These little cubes, thermocubes they're called. You can get them on Granger. You can take one of them, a little chicken light, a little heat lamp, throw them on. So instead of heating the air, you're heating the concrete or the pipe. And if that pipe's what you're worried about freezing, you just turn this thing on, let it get on the pipe. And then this little thermocube's got a little relay in there. And this isn't long-term, fix my solution, but I got a heater that's out or I need to do something, throw this in. You can stick this in and you go down there. So now you're heating the pipe or the concrete. So it's a little more effective, plus it's on a little bit better thermostat. So LED lighting, that's a pretty easy one. If you've got fluorescents or anything like that, you're probably going to end up changing them. Of course, street lights are doing whole street light programs now, which is a pretty substantial savings when you look at just the sheer numbers of them. But there's a lot of reasons to go to them other than energy efficiency. If you're worried about the environment, there's no mercury. Any fluorescent bulb you got, even if you got the little compact ones, got a little bit of mercury in them, low UV. Of course, they last, about 4 times longer than the incandescent bulb, last longer than a fluorescent bulb. They will dim a little bit over time, and you'll have some of the little LEDs go out. But bottom line, you don't have to change them, you don't have to mess with them near as much. So The two types you see a lot are, well, you don't see a lot of the T12, but I still see a lot of, 4-foot fluorescence. And if you go from that to an LED, you're seeing fairly substantial. If you got the high pressure sodium, those things are extremely inefficient, and you can make some pretty good savings on them. So, the thing is, everybody's like, I don't want to change fixtures, I don't want to have to do all that. You don't really have to. You can just get LED bulbs for like in the 4-foot fluorescence. You can take them out and gut them. So basically, pull the cover off, turn power off, bypass your ballast, just wire past your ballast, and you can get these little LED bulbs. LEDs won't work on AC. They work on DC, but they got a little module in here. So you just put them right in your same fixtures. You put your fixture backs together, and you got LED bulbs. Now, are the ones you're putting in here as good as some of the high-end ones? Probably not, but this is a really quick change out. You can change them out. You can get these box of 50 off of eBay really cheap. And it's a quick change out in some areas that, you're not worried about how the fixture looks. You're not worried about like in here, you want everything look nice. You're out in the shop or you're out in the house, one of your pump buildings or something. And same way, if you've got some old areas that got can lights or something, you got these arc cobs or corn cobs, they get called. They thread right in incandescent fixture. They've got it to where 3 sides of them tilt out and you can direct them. You'll see a lot of them in garages and stuff. So it's pretty easy to go with LEDs if you really want to without doing a ton of work. Ameren, you can buy them off of Ameren. They've got them there where they got to replace the T8s and the LED corn cobs. So you can see their price. Ameren's got that's Ameren, Illinois. They got a bunch of stuff on their website where you can go ahead and get to. We'll look at your buildings while we're there. If there's something you want us to do or not. Are your windows leaking a bunch of air? Insulation, heating. Are we cooling areas or heating areas that don't really need to be? And then of course cracks in the structures. Anyway, so here's kind of what we're going to measure off is inefficient motors, VFDs on something throttle. If you got a pump that's running full and you want it to run full flow, VFD's not the way to go. If you put a VFD on a pump and then you run that pump at 100%, you're going to lose about 2 to 3% energy. They're not that energy efficient at high speed. That's not where they work. If you're just worried about the start and stop, put a soft start on it. Now, if you're wanting to control where you can set it, then you need to go with the VFD. And if you can set it down a little bit, you will save some money. But if you're just worried about that spike off the start, you want a nice start, slow start, and slow stop, you're better off just put a soft start on it because it'll be more energy efficient. We'll look at HVAC. Look to your SCADA. You got SCADA that's controlling stuff that maybe it doesn't need to be doing it a certain way. The National Rural Water says that 63% of systems will implement some plan. Of course, where to get the money to do all this stuff, kind of the big hinge point for everything. USDA's got some loans and grants. There's probably more money out there for infrastructure right now than there's ever been. I've been into it for 38 years. There's just tons of government funding to come in and do some stuff. Principal forgiveness. USDA's got some loans for rural stuff. Ameren, Illinois got some incentives where they do. This is from a reply to an email I sent them and said, hey, I just want to make sure this is a municipal customer, DS2 is the billing rate, and this was from their email. Municipal buildings, basically anything with DS2, DS3. So municipalities do fit into their structures for that. This was actually off of their website, so this is a VFD application, or part of it's multi-pages. But if you're going to install a VFD, you can get up to $125 per horsepower, up to 80% of the project cost. So it's Ameren's rules, Ameren's guidelines. But if you're willing to do it and go through their paperwork and do their stuff, you can get a lot of this money rebated back. You have to use their authorized contractors, but it is an option where you might be able to get a portion of your money back. IEPA, Gary Bingenheimer's been doing stuff for us on some of Kent's trainings. And like I said, that's where there's all kinds of money out there that there never was. There's loans you can get with the principal forgiveness, and then there's other pots you can get that if you're low income or single source, like if you only got water providers only got one well, there's some of those communities that you're able to get more principal forgiveness on top of the original principal forgiveness. So there's money out there. If you've got projects that need to be done, you're probably, I've never seen this much, and with the principal forgiveness like it is now. It's still a loan. You're still going to have to make it pay. You're probably still going to have to adjust your rates accordingly. But it's out there if you got projects need to be done, and this is the time to look into them. So when I get done with all my stuff, you'll get a nice little report and kind of with a cover page like this and some pictures and some other stuff. But basically it'll have something similar to this that'll say, hey, if you come in and if you do this, here's what your energy savings is in kilowatt per hour. Here's the cost you're going to save. Here's the cost of improvement. Here's the kind of rebate you got back, which I think this was the guy before me, but I think this was Amber. And then kind of how you're going to get paid back in a year. So that's where you can say, you know what, we're going to change these lights out right here. We're going to go ahead and get them done, get that return, get that money coming back in. And, maybe then we're going to change this heater out. Maybe then we're going to do, backwash. So you can do any of it, none of it, strictly up to you. None of my business until I come back a couple years later and go, hey, how's it going? What'd you do? And even then you can tell me, we didn't do any of it. We disagree. That's up to you. So, but I do follow-ups because that's part of my thing. So, of course, energy pyramid, energy conservation's where we all start. Turn the lights off. We're not using them. That kind of stuff. And then that's where I come in, try to figure out that stuff. And then, of course, you can get into the renewable energy. I've had a couple slides for that just because I'd had quite a bit of questions on it. There are some companies that are focused on wastewater plants and doing installations. There's one company that's doing solar panels on lagoons where they actually float. So I'm not sure if that'd be a route I'd want to go, but there are companies that do focus on, we want to put panels and systems in at wastewater plants. So I typically don't get as much opposition. Wastewater plants tend to sit out there. Nobody lives right around them. And so when they put them up, people don't go, hey, I don't want that next to me. So they said it's a little easier for them to do that. And they know there's some demand there with blowers and pumps so that the demand makes the sizing. So we're going to talk just briefly about distributed generation systems. This is not community solar or any of these programs. This is strictly where you're going to put panels at your facility. This is what this is geared for. So you basically got three options. You can buy a system, have it installed. It's your system. You get every bit of benefit from it, but you got to pay for it. You can lease a system, which is exactly what it sounds like. They come in, put it in, you lease it from them, or you could do power purchase agreements. That's what we're seeing quite a bit of. What we're talking about is net metering. So basically, the generation from it's going to be tied in with a different type of meter where they can monitor both directions of it. They won't size it for 100%. It'll be sized a little bit smaller in your demand. And then they run the credits over the year. So if you, a month like this where you got a lot of sunlight, you generate more than you use, you get credit for that and you can use that back up, and it runs on a year basis. So it's not like I'm only going to, get a benefit in the summertime. So this is what they're going to want, utility bills, and then they're going to look at your area. They'll put it, if you got a place that floods 8 inches a foot deep every so often, they don't care about that. They'll put solar panels there because they're going to be setting up on a rack like this, and they don't really care about that. There are some areas that you might not want to use for anything else. That might be a place for them. Of course, setbacks and local regulations. If your area says, hey, we don't allow solar panels, that might be it. Of course, you can't have an area that's really shaded or anything. So, and then they'll size it accordingly. They'll look at utility rates in the area to see what their return is. You got to remember they're looking to make money too. And they don't want really big ones for this. They're looking at kind of mid-size. So, and they're getting tax incentives to do this. It's one of the places they're making money. So when they first come in, they're going to want you to sign a letter of intent, which just says, hey, we're going to talk to you. The solar company's going to spend a little money. They're going to get some engineers and look at the aerial and come out and check your property out. And look at the grid and talk about here where it comes in. So they're going to spend a little bit of money. So what that agreement says you'll do is you won't talk to any other solar provider for 6 months, whether you go with them or not. You can't talk to anybody else. If you do, they can come at you and say, hey, we spent $4,500 in engineering. We want our money back. So it's not a huge deal, but just know once you sign that, don't be talking to anybody else because you open yourself up a little bit. So if you want to talk to somebody else, do it before you sign a letter of intent. Go find another company and say, hey, we heard you guys are doing this too. What do you think? So once you do that, you sign your letter of intent. What they're going to want you to do is sign a PPA, power purchase agreement. Basically, that's where you sit down and say, okay, you're going to put them in. They're going to be here for 30 years. Here's what I'm going to get out of it. Here's what you're going to get out of it. That's when you can negotiate in there as to what your benefit is. They're typically, what I've been seeing is 30 years, what I've been told. So it's their system. It's on your property. They maintain it. You don't have to do anything with it. That's the good side of it. You just ignore it. You get the benefit of it. You're not going to get 100% reduction in your electric rate, but you're going to get a reduction in your electric rates. No matter what they are, you'll get a reduction in them. So, but when you sign this PPA, that's where your savings is dictated. So if you're going to try to negotiate to get a better deal, you do it before you sign this. Keystone sent me a picture, so I left their name on here. They're one of many companies that do this. I'm not telling you to go with them. I just told them they'd send me a picture, I'd use her. So I use this picture because you can see it doesn't have to be in one spot. They did some here, over here, and then they just interconnect them all. So, and every company's a little bit different in how they do it. There's another firm that's putting solar panels on the back of the arrays because they're seeing enough reflection coming off the front and off the ground that they are capturing that with panels on the back. So in just that, instead of having panels facing the sun, they're putting panels on the back so that they capture more in the same area. So they're also one of the companies that's kind of, their panels seem to be a little bit more flexible, so supposedly a little more durable. We'll see. Of course, lifetimes of the panels, as of right now, they say 30 years, but at the end of 30 years, they typically don't just stop working. They're, they just kind of degrade like a lot of other stuff. So, but, so what you're going to look at is, here's what we're making. You're locked in for 30 years. You got the contract with them. You're probably at the end of 30 years, they're probably still going to be generating electricity. Probably not like they were at the start of the program, but same way, probably not like they are, it's not like they're going to be down to 10%. So then where you have options at that point, you can say, hey, get your stuff off my property. We decide we're going to build some more lagoons there, move them out. You can say, hey, we still got, we're still getting a benefit for them. Let's go to another 10-year agreement. Or you could buy the system out. You could say, well, what does it take to buy it? Because it's going to cost them money to pick it up and move it, obviously. So you could say, hey, you know what, we like it. We'll keep the benefit ourselves, but we want all the benefit. So at that point, that's when you'd evaluate, the last 10 years, have they been here every month for the last 10 years? I doubt I'd want that system. I wouldn't want to be trying to maintain something. But if it's, hey, they still haven't been here very much, system's running good, hadn't had any issues, maybe at that time you want to buy it out and say, hey, we'll take it over. I'm not sure. So it'll be up to you. And pretty much in a nutshell, that's all I got, unless anybody's got questions. No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. How practical are solar panels in this climate where it snows so much in the wintertime and the rest of the year there's so much?
They're practical because of government subsidiary. So these companies are making enough money because they're getting some subsidies. Our side it makes practical because they're making that load. So that's where it kind of makes sense because we're not sharing the risk. You know where you get benefit. It's not as much benefit as you purchase. If you purchase your own system to put it in, you're going to get the entire benefit. You're going to get for it. But hey, you got to come up with capital to put it in. B, you gotta maintain it. I don't know, solar. I know what it does, I don't know how it does it, I don't know if the inverter was bad, what do I do, how do I change it? So that's the upside of this, is they put all the capital in, they take the rest, they maintain it. So the climate, they work well enough. One of our guys put one in his home with some solar. He had really great results, and his payoff's coming out. Only because of federal stuff.
Just make sure that blue light's on before you go on stage.
If you go brush them off,
That kind of
you know, and that's the thing, you can say, well, do we want to go to do that? Not really our system, but we know we're gonna get the benefit of it, so maybe you want to go. Maybe you go out the blower, the lights. Or we may go, hey, that's our system, we're not gonna touch them, we're gonna take the rest of the panel, break the panel. So, I would say that's probably something when you get into, you discuss with the solar provider. But like I said, there are several companies that are really focused on it. And, you know, remember, you told us, well, we're not gonna recommend anybody. We're gonna recommend Schulte's file, we're gonna recommend, so we don't recommend who, so what we let, look at. But there has been, that's what we're talking about, starting to go like trade shows and getting booths where they can start presenting people and get more interest, so. Apparently
This moves you forward, backward in your slides.
Right.
That's like a mouse. You probably won't need to use that, but that's a laser pointer if you want to use it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Ready to go.
I'm pretty caught up right now. Yeah, I got some garden flyers over here, so, yeah, I'm pretty squared away. You guys remember? All that. So, time is good for you, but, yeah, September is pretty busy. I still got the rest of this month. Probably started on, so.
Dave, you mentioned the demand charges. I had a call yesterday on a system that I used to operate. Duplex submersible lift station, storm flow, but they're only, for some reason they had a situation going on where the pumps are kicking on for only like 1/10 of an hour per, but that one run cycle, and it's local Fulton County system. They're getting hit with demand charges, or their whole bill is being based off of the demand for that one time that those pumps are kicking on. Is that,
You kind of get the pinch on that stuff because, you know, you can be energy efficient if you want, but bottom line, operations first. You know, I can't just tell, I don't want that second pump, that lift station running. So, operation comes first. That's where you can kind of look at it and say, you know, maybe I need to, I don't know, maybe I need to put a delay on something, or, you know, or maybe this, you know, maybe my lead pump needs to run a little longer before my lag pump comes on, or I need to have that draw down a little farther on my lead pump. That's where you kind of look at, is there something I could change to space that out a little bit? Because that's all that matters, is once that pump starts, and of course, you know, just across the line start,
Yep.
it's gonna do that spike and draw. And that may be a situation where, if that's across the line start, they might want to put a soft start on it. I mean, if you're wanting full flow, I wouldn't say VFD, but you may want to put a soft start, cut that spike down, you may be able to have full pump start, run. So that, I mean, that's where you gotta look at it. Are they at 153 and the demand's 150? Or are they 167 and the demand's 150? So, you know, it's one of them, no size fits all, one size fits all, it doesn't.
Right.
So, but you can kind of look at it, and there may be some options there to get them below that. Because once you get that demand, it's usually locked for a year. You get that demand charge for a year, and that's every month for a year. So if you can get down below that, stay below that, then you save yourself some money throughout the entire year.
right?
How do you get access to that?
On
That
your-
demand,
On your electric bill, it'll say, just go off and say, hey, I'd like to see a copy of our Ameren bill. Then they get online, try to understand it, because I think they intend to make it confusing as hell, I really do. Yeah, but you'll see on, say, demand charge, if you don't have it on there, then you're not getting charged a demand charge. If you are, it'll list, it'll literally say, demand charge, and it'll have a dollar amount right after it. So I encourage you to look at your utility bills, you'd be maybe shocked, so. And then 24 hours a day. So on ours, I went back and after I started on this job and called and said, send me a copy of the bill. And we were just under on our demand charge on the rate where it was. We were 147 that month before, and they were 150. The level was 150. So I told them, I used to be careful that, we're not backwashing and switching UV. Because when our UVs would switch, the second one would come up, so they both would run, and the first one would go down. So you get a big increase when they start up, they go 100%, and they turn way down. 50% is minimum turn down, but we'd see a spike. So I said, hey, you need to make sure when he's doing that, we do our maintenance on them, that you're not backwashing at the same time. Now you're starting another 100 horse motor on top of that, you're probably going to exceed that. So, but that's something you can look at. Just get a copy of your hammer bill, the list is on there, demand chart, and like I said, kind of look at them anyway. You'd be surprised that there's a lot of information, a lot of taxes on there too. Yeah.
At wastewater plants, are you seeing much interest in on-site power generation and sludge gas?
No, I know, there was a presentation a while back, somebody had on that, wasn't us. I don't remember where it was. Yeah, I know the biogas stuff. I don't know. I would say most people are probably gonna wait and see. Once you do that, we'll see how it works. If it works real good, maybe we'll look at it, because that's a little bit different animal.
We did that here for many years. Actually, back when I came here in '67, and then later we put in new generators. And what we found was that the gas was so corrosive that we couldn't keep our generators going.
Oh, okay.
And ultimately, I was wondering if anyone else has been doing it.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody. I mean, there was something a while back I remember seeing it. I think it was a webinar or something.
I think that was the webinar that I sent you. And in part because both our programs, we more focus on minor systems, less than 1 MGD, less than 10,000 population. So a lot of those systems aren't going to be doing a lot of sludge digestion. Many of the ones that I deal with are actually lagoon systems.
Is he talking about using the methane gas off the lagoons or sludge?
Yeah.
Galesburg uses methane off of their sludge systems to run gas pumps that are their raw water pumps. And they actually, they have a system to switch back and forth between natural gas and methane. They run about 60%, 70% of the time on methane generated off their system. So they have a system that scrubs the gas before it comes in.
It's a good scrubber.
Well, yeah, the gas comes in, it's wet, it's very wet, so it has freshness to it. What they do is they run it through a dryer that takes all that out, and then you just have just the main gas afterward.
So Dave is not yet as familiar with wastewater. It's primarily water. And his background running City of Taylorville's. One area that, like I mentioned, that lift station that's running a cycle that it really may not need to be. Some of the new lift station control systems that are out there, and being able to look at your operation and see whether you can change to flow pacing on your lift station pumps potentially to offset some of the demand charges depending on the size of your lift stations. We all know wastewater, so there are several things that are limited that we can control. But if there's anything that you can start looking at operationally with what the utility costs have done and are going to continue to do, it's definitely the time to look at it.
Yeah, and on your, utility bill, you're gonna get a bill for each area. So if you have one lift station, your bill will be, you'll have maybe 12 pages of bill, but you'll have a bill for that lift station, you'll have a bill for this lift station, so you can look at each individual one and say, hey, we're not seeing it here or here, but I'm seeing this demand charge, I'm seeing this charge here. And that's when you may go to that one and say, hey, let's look at our run times on our pumps. How come we have an issue with that, or is this pump running more? Do we need to change some settings on maybe to just lead the lag or, that kind of stuff. You may be able to make a change to one lift station. That maybe, three of them don't need it, maybe one of them you can benefit just by looking at it. So, but yeah, you need to just pull your bills, go to your clerk, hey, copy of these, and you kind of sit down and look through them and see why, why is this one so much higher? These are pretty much identical. Why is this one so much higher than that one? That may be where you first place you come in without even needing me. I mean, I'll be glad to help, but you can save money just figuring it out on yourself. That's great too. So, but yeah, I'd encourage you to look at it.
I was in a system this week that's running aerated lagoon system that's running 2 blowers all the time because they have one helixer that tends to not want to plug up on them. But then we also found, like one of the systems that I started in and used to work in, there was a leak on the air distribution header underground. So I kind of advised them in my report that I sent back, and might want to pothole excavate or do some analysis there, because what we'd found in the lagoon system that I worked in, their air distribution header went bad and we're leaking air, so potential of shutting off one blower and only running one versus 2 could be a huge energy savings to them. So watch your head. We ran a little short on the first presentation, so glad to have some conversation here. Want to make sure you guys get the 2 hours that we allotted for you. Before we get started, Jeff Tumiati couldn't be here with us today. His daughter had surgery a couple weeks ago. His wife had surgery yesterday. So he's playing nursemaid to 2 women. And pity's the guy. He's definitely got his hands full right now. Before I get started giving his presentation for him, a little bit about the program that I'm in currently. It's wastewater training and technical assistance. It's a new position that was created through U.S. EPA funding through the Clean Water Act back in March 1st. So the program encompasses just about everything with wastewater, whether it be lift stations, energy efficiency, cyber awareness. There's a whole bunch of incentives or initiatives that I'm supposed to present training presentations on. So any of you that do both, water and wastewater, the water group that we used to meet over at Festival of Lights building all the time, or the trainings, if you've been to any of them, that Dave McMillan's been putting on for a few years. I'm doing the same thing, traveling the state, doing 2 to 3 hours of a morning sessions for wastewater trainings, although a lot of them are on both of our programs are dual credit. So if you need hours, keep an eye out for our flyers, watch the website. Any of them that we do, because it's funded through federal funds, are required to be free. We typically try and start like 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning and then get done before lunch. Everybody's got in the area that's traveling, an hour and a half, still has emergency response capability, or you can get your readings done of a morning and at your lift stations and stuff before you leave to drive to where we're going. It's going to be doing another one here in Peoria, or East Peoria, December, January. Was going to be January, and the vendor for the one in Decatur that I'm doing asked if I could switch those dates around. So if you see our circuit rider in the area, he's been showing the list of the potential training dates and things. So all those are tentative. They can fluctuate a little bit. My November that I was going to do in Freeport, I'm having to do a little shuffling on because I got called for jury duty, and the second session starts on that day, so don't know for certain. I'm going to have some other guys cover it and go ahead and continue with that training. If any of you got trainings, particular topics you want to see, if you have places that you want to host a training in your shop or whatever, just let me know. One that just came up this week that I'd mentioned earlier, I'm doing an impromptu, short notice invite only for anybody that's interested over at Bushnell's West Lagoon's getting a sludge clean out right now. Some of you were here early and might have heard me talking about it. So if you've got that, sand filters being cleaned, different projects coming near you know about, think would be something that would be good for people to see for CEUs, let me know and we'll do everything I can to work it out and get invites out, within the area, whether send it to go out through this mailing list, all of you that get the emails, or but we'll get you the information and do whatever I can to continue to give you more CEUs and bring more to the area, whatever we can do to support this wastewater operator group, which I've been a member for more years than I care to admit. So.
We can do wastewater training in the morning because they all nap in the afternoon.
Now, I usually am monotone enough when I'm giving my presentations. I usually see people nodding off during it, so it's not a big deal.
Just for the main system alone. We drop the bill about 50%, just by doing solar panels. So, don't want to, just say, we can't do it. 50% for a lot of these facilities is quite that money, because, I know some wastewater facilities, their bills, $10,000 a month or more. And that can be, with 50% of that is a significant savings. Average residential that does get solar panels can see in their lifespan over $100,000 in savings. That's just for residential. So commercial, you got real estate on roofs. Building like this, you have significant savings on this side of the building. So, things to keep in mind. Programs out there, you got state, you got federal incentives, you get a tax credit from the federal government. You build that is outside. It was 26, and we moved it up to 28%, which is at the tax credit for your not a good option, it's a tax credit. So, these guys, they can really out getting the guidance on it. There's also, once you get to a good company, they can help you out make good assessments.
I've been intrigued by the potential of putting them on lagoons having operated a lot of lagoon systems, and actually have one of them that I'm still operating that's a Limtech covered lagoon system. Seeing the difference blocking that solar light and keeping your algae down to help control the suspended solids that you got coming out some of these lagoons. Given that shade, not having to do any kind of a chemical treatment or go to the expense of putting in just the mats like I have on that system. It's kind of an interesting idea, and so. Okay. You ready? Okay, I'm gonna go back over there now. So, Illinois Rural Water has an apprenticeship program that started here a few months ago. And we actually, in this area, have a couple of apprentices over at Tremont that are in the program. So if you have any interest in the program, after we get through with this, you can definitely talk to guys over there and find out more, as well as talking to Jeff Tumiotti, the head of our apprenticeship program. So it's a nationwide program, partnership between National Rural Water Association and Rural Development. First became funded in 2017. Currently there's 34 states with active programs. The funding increased in 2020, and that's when Illinois Rural Water applied. And in October 2020 was when we were awarded the grant and the program started. The apprentices and employers are registered with the U.S. Department of Labor, and the apprenticeship certificate of completion is recognized nationally. And have a little video, if I can make it work here, about the program. One more.
Water is a good career path for several reasons, because one, it's recession proof, and another thing is it's fulfilling because you have the health of the public in your hands.
I live out in the country on a one-lane dirt road, and some people don't even have water. There's not even a water source there. They have cisterns that they have to come here to BDP Water Corp to fill up and take it back to their house and fill up, you know, on a daily basis or every other day. Water is so important.
It's about, you know, creating clean water for your family and your friends, and you know that, you know, it's a great job that you're helping the public.
With this pandemic, we talk about first responders, but water is a pre-responder, because if you can't have clean, safe, potable drinking water, you can't have hospitals and operations or anything of that such.
I really like getting to meet and greet new customers and spending time and serving the community that I myself live in.
You know, you're around people all the time that are going through issues, and they're trying to set up a new home site, and they want to get water service, they want to get wastewater service, and you are able to help them and help that family get established.
Well, I've been able to go around the city of Lebanon and just speak to different people, meet different people I've never met before, help people by getting their water back on, fixing a leak, been able to get rid of water advisory where people can use their water, get it back to them.
I can't tell you how many people I've met with smiling faces, but grateful for the work we do.
There's so many people that are being trained, they're being taught the skills in this particular trade, and I've been able to talk to so many different people about the apprenticeship program.
The apprentice program so far has helped me better understand more of what the water system is and more of the regulations and different tests and how to do them, and the different safety precautions and a bunch of other stuff like that.
The apprenticeship program is a training model. It couples on-the-job training with related technical instruction. They are learning in the classroom with things that they are implementing in their day-to-day jobs.
One advantage of the apprenticeship is it gives someone the opportunity to earn a wage while they learn. Rather than going to college and racking up a bunch of debt, then the apprenticeship, they actually get paid while they're on the job, and the employer pays for their training. So it's a win-win situation for the apprentice, because they learn a full-time trade, a real good solid occupation with no debt whatsoever.
The apprenticeship program really helped me out a lot, because when I came in entry level. I had the military background, but didn't have any, I knew how to dig with a shovel, that's about it. So it helped me get my first license, but also they paid me in the process, and that kind of helped me catch up on bills. I wasn't having to go to an actual college, I was able to do everything right at work, and that was a pretty big relief.
If I was needing to hire someone, I would look at someone that had apprenticeship training before I looked at anyone else, because they would have the deeper understanding of the water business or the wastewater business, either one. They have the well-rounded knowledge that above everyone else.
You know, I think I'm making an impact through water. I mean, like, you know,
the training that I've been through, I know I'm doing things the right way, up to regulation, and just providing a safe drinking water.
My favorite part of my whole job is the fact that I'm needed. I feel like I got worth in this career. If you're looking for a job, don't even consider it. But if you're looking for a career, really do consider water. It is something you look forward to going to and doing every day, knowing that you're making a difference.
So, I know most of the guys in the room are not unlike myself, and this doesn't necessarily apply to you, but thinking toward the future, our replacements and future planning is definitely a good program to get those people involved in. So to get into some of the details of the apprenticeship program. So the first apprentice group started in September 2021. There's currently 3 groups, 2 water and 1 wastewater. We actually only, at this time, currently I have 2 wastewater apprentices, and they're over at Tilton, Illinois, over by Danville. It takes about 380,000 skilled water and wastewater specialists to provide safe drinking water and treat wastewater effluent daily nationwide. Over the next decade or less, the water and wastewater industry is going to lose 30 to 50% of the workforce to retirements. So this equates to approximately 100 to 190,000 professional water and wastewater specialists retiring. So how are we to backfill those positions? The days of hiring just anybody to be a new operator is long gone. We all know and have seen the change and everything that's gone on within our fields, how technical things have become. We're talking about SCADA, you're getting into computerized reporting, as well as all the more stringent requirements that continue to come to us in our NPDES permits, and having to look at new forms of treatment. Again, the rules, regulations, and technology have evolved to a point where it takes a truly highly trained professional to operate today's plants. And without properly trained personnel, our communities and public health would suffer. One that could be added to that, of course, is our environment on our end of things. So the minimum requirements for apprentices, they must be at least 18 years of age, have a high school diploma or certificate of equivalency. Applicants must be physically capable of performing the essential functions of the apprenticeship program or the job. Depending on the municipality that they're going to be working for, they may be required to take and pass a drug screening prior to employment. They may also be required to pass qualifying background checks to be considered. And all apprentices must possess a valid driver's license. Both water and wastewater apprenticeship programs require successful completion of 4,000 hours on the job training with their mentor, whether that mentor be the existing certified operator or whether potentially could be a neighboring community's operator that agrees to be their mentor. Their successful completion of 288 hours of related technical training, consisting of a great mix of online and in-person instructor classes, home study courses using the Sacramento State manuals. The wage progression is, we all that have been in this industry haven't seen a lot. It's a nice attraction. They're happy to see it being added to this program to help with some of the wages that a lot of these smaller communities especially are willing to offer, I guess I should say. So period 1, wage starts out at not less than $15 an hour. That's for the first 1,000 hours of on-the-job training and completion of identified curriculum with a passing grade and satisfactory evaluation. In the next period 2, again, another 1,000-hour block brings a 10% wage increase to a minimum of $16.50 an hour. At the period 3, another 10% increase to $18.15 an hour. Period 4, additional 10% up to $19.96 an hour, and then on completion, a 20% increase, bringing the wage to $23.96 an hour. I know a lot of systems in my area that are still starting people out at less than minimum wage and then have to go through, or the coming minimum wage of $15 an hour, and then their progression's only whatever that community is giving us annually, if there's any. A lot of those have only been 2 to 3%. So this is a real benefit, but also can be a stumbling block for some of the communities. But definitely important if we want to continue to bring new people into the field. We're going to have to be competitive with the wages and benefits. So the curriculums, it's both water and wastewater curriculums on this. For the orientation's 4 hours. It's basic and small water and wastewater systems. Sorry, let me back up. The basic system operations is 12 hours approximately. We're requiring everybody to go through the online OSHA 30 training, which is a pretty intense and grueling procedure if any of you have been through it. 16 hours on excavation safety, 10 hours on basic math. All of our current apprentice groups have been through the math programs that already. Small operation and maintenance, 36 hours of training, and treatment plant operations, another 36 hours, for a total of 144 hours during year 1. Year 2 is a similar setup of 144 hours. The curriculum being, again, the second level operator treatment plants, 36 hours, 16 hours of advanced math training, distribution system and or collection system, 36 hours, laws and regulations of 8 hours, laboratories and sample collection procedures would be 8 hours of training. Utility management certification is 24 hours. Illinois EPA website, the reporting, contract operations is 8 hours worth of curriculum, and on-site tours being an additional 8 hours. And the hour breakdowns remain the same, only directly for wastewater in these instances. And again, year 1's 144 hours on those categories. And year 2 being another 144 hours of the similar course curriculum requirements. So some things are meant to be clean, like our water or wastewater in our instance. The program's been nationally recognized. It was developed in the response to the industry's need to train the next generation of skilled workers. It is providing a standardized training across the state of Illinois. And again, Jeff Timiotti's contact information's there. I don't think we have any of his brochures or cards. He's more than happy to talk to any communities that might have anyone interested in the program. Anyone have any questions on the program? If any of you, I also have all the pamphlets and information electronically that I can send you that Jeff has. There's one specific to potential operators. There's a separate one for the communities, and then a general overview, flyers as well. So I've already shared that information with Paul, and as they're going doing their inspections in different communities, he's trying to share that information with them.
Percentage operators are going to be gone in the next 5 years.
Didn't give a percentage, it gave a number, didn't it? We'll back up.
That was anywhere from 35 to 50% of operators are going to retire in the next 5 years. So, got a lot of towns that are waiting until the operators retire, not knowing that it's going to take 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years. And that's one of the things that Jeff faces when he goes around and talks to, communities, talks to boards or public works director, whatever, that they're saying, well, this guy's going to retire in January, and they're like, it's kind of late to get started on that. They're like, well, we'll hire somebody then. I think they just think there's a bunch of operators out there, so, bottom line is just not. You look around and a lot of us got a lot of gray. I ain't the only one in this room's got some. So, I've been retired for 4 or 5 months now. So, yeah, that's the water and wastewater both. They're just going to be, it's going to hit the wall there. The good news for the guys that are still doing it is you'll probably be able to ask for more money. You say, well, if you don't give me here, I'll go over there. But some of the guys that are younger, that's something you got to think about is you got somebody that you're going to lose these guys. You need to start working on getting guys that get in this training, get in it, so we can continue on doing what we do.
The system that had requested assistance I went to 2 weeks ago and walked in, met the gentleman that worked there, and started having a conversation with him. And he was really excited, showed me his letter. He just went through the ERTC short school and he passed his 4, but he's only been there 4 months. Okay, so who's your certified operator? And looked at me kind of funny. You're an operator in training until you complete the time requirement. Their operator was one who hadn't kept up on his CEUs thinking the day was never going to come when we had to submit them or whatever for renewals. He turned in his resignation effective July 1st. And so this was August, and mid-August when I got there, and they'd been without an operator license to cover it. And the July DMRs hadn't been submitted yet, and had to hurry around and see who some of the operators were in the area while I was there and visit with them and get somebody that was willing to come over and meet with them and step in and be their certified operator and work as his mentor to certify his completion of his hours. And I don't know how many people there were that opted not to renew on the class 3 and 4 this year. I haven't talked to Tatum to find out. And I anticipate there's going to be a larger number of those, with several of us that have got a 1 and 2 that are going to be renewing next July that this is going to happen. So, and again, with the additional coming regulations, things getting tighter, succession planning hasn't been in place in most systems, and trying to get new operators to come into the field, or relying more heavily on those of us veterans that have been out there to contract operate neighboring supplies and try and train up some new guys. It's going to be an interesting coming few years, certainly. So. Anybody? Your crickets. So, I guess the other part of my position, besides doing trainings, is actually technical assistance with a lot of supplies. Some of that comes through request. Thanks. Through the agency. Paul's in contact with me, who's working with a system, trying to help them maintain and do some repairs and maintenance to the plant to bring them into compliance, or reviewing NPDES permits. I've had a couple systems that have one, their engineer contacted and said, they were required to have a CMOM in their last permit, we're renewing the permit, how can we get it done? Very small, very poor communities, so I actually was working on preparing their CMOM plan for them. Another one is doing their MPDS renewal for, it's in a similar situation, that the engineers just, they really don't have the money and hate to have to charge them for it, so. If you have needs or have had a recent inspection, have questions, you can definitely reach out to me. I'd be happy to come see what I can do to assist.
I think, what you say, eventually we're gonna hit a wall with operators. Do you think when that happens, the EPA will lift the restrictions as far as the people in training? Cause you know, back in the '70s, like Kurt Downing, you know, he went to school and he was a license, correct? So what transpired, that's why I don't understand. You know, back in the '70s, you know, they went to school, boom, here's a license, and now us newer guys are jumping through bigger hoops to get that classification. I'm in the same boat, I'm an A trained.
Right.
I just went into the school and it don't matter.
Right. So I think the agency was actually created in the 70s. So at that time, there were several operators that were able to be grandfathered in or go through a shorter process since everything was already in place. But as time's progressed over those 50 years since the agency's been created, and the field has progressed with newer forms of technology in a lot of cases and things, that's why the agency made those requirements more stringent over time. I see them heads nodding or shaking no as far when you're asking the question, as those, if those requirements were going to be lessened over time, probably not likely. Not sure. I've had that same conversation with multiple people over the last 5 or 10 years of my career, even prior to switching this position, how much more stringent, how much more difficult the A water test has gotten for all of those, to the time requirements, as well as the reviews and things they've been doing to the way contract operations are being done, and additional visits and restrictions being put on those, at least on the wastewater side of things. So it doesn't appear that it's going to get any simpler or anything's going to be backed off of on that. Yeah.
Yes, first of all, thanks for everybody coming. Chad, Dave, Kent. I guess our big meeting will be in November, first week of our first Thursday.
Yeah, we're gonna have to probably move it to a Thursday instead of a Friday.
Okay. We'll send out notices and probably need RSVPs on that. And we'll just probably collect the money that day.
It's gonna be a $20 charge.
Yeah, the $20 charge, we'll just collect that day. There's no sense sending it in. And for anybody that was listening online or the YouTube, get hold of Jason to get a certificate so you get your credited hours for today. I don't really have anything else, so